This is Cody from Texas Roadshow Shop, and you're listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show, part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, the number one place for advice on how to make money flipping sports cards. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, there is no off-season.
What's up, everyone? This is Duke Dodson from Graybows, and you're listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show, part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network. And remember, there is no off-season.
What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com. This is the Sports Card Strategy Show. Don't forget to get a free 30-day trial at NoOffSeason.com today to help you make money flipping sports cards, build your sports card investment portfolio, get unlimited advice from our experts, and take sports card school to navigate the hobby. That's NoOffSeason.com. Get your free 30-day trial today. All the data we use on the Sports Card Strategy Show is from MarketMoversApp.com. Use code NOOFFSEASON at MarketMoversApp.com to get 20% off for life after a free 14-day trial. All right, let's get to the Sports Card Strategy. NoOffSeason.com. What is up, everybody? Let's get it.
Come on.
Lefty, McKee, and I are jamming to the rock music here on Wednesday, September 11th. Hope all of you are having a safe, happy, healthy September 11th. And we're ready to get into how to help you make money flipping sports cards. Lefty, I am jacked up about today's show, brother. There's just some energy happening that was just ready to unleash on today's show. You ready to get it?
I am so ready, bro. There are so many cool opportunities in sports cards this week. I didn't even put a hat on. Man, it's just, we are ready to go, my man. And I'm sorry if I busted all of those eardrums just screaming as soon as they're like, yeah, sports card strategy.
We were both just absolutely dancing to the rock music, both of us. You couldn't see us.
Dude. It gets me in the zone.
We gotta do a new, I think I'm gonna work on a new intro. And the intro is great, but I think I'm going to work on a new intro. The rock music is going nowhere. We're always going to keep the rock music. The rock music is us.
Vintage at this point.
Yeah, it's never going anywhere. So, but I mean, you and I are jamming behind the scenes, and we're ready to get into it. So, welcome everybody to the Sports Card Strategy Show. Chad Dyer in the house. Good to see Chad. We're going to say hello to everybody in the live chat, but hello to everybody on Apple and Spotify as well. Hello, middle-aged men.
And Roderick from Amsterdam. That is sick.
What's up?
That's so cool, dude.
Netherlands in the house. Good people over in the Netherlands. I was over in Europe for 5 years of my life, living in Spain, and loved Amsterdam. Roderick, welcome to the Sports Card Strategy Show, brother. Guys, today we're going to get into, of course, top 5 sports cards to buy, graded, and flip. As Lefty likes to say, graded to graded, or still graded. Whatever floats your boat. Graded. We're buying already graded cards, and then we're flipping them. We're going to talk about that later. We're going to get into Caitlin Clark draft night card craziness. Backup QB prospecting with a name that Lefty is going to drop. I'm going to let him tell you who it is later. A big topic of today's show, a big topic is going to be to buy or fade several things. Number one, Topps Now football. I said this would happen in week 1, that Topps Now would put out football cards of week 1. Well, they did. They put out 3 of them. 2 of them are still available. We're going to talk about it. And then Bowman U football. So Topps has the Bowman U Next brand that they put out. So these are all print on demand cards. We'll talk a little bit about comparing them to Panini and Panini Instant and some of the stuff that Panini has going on. We'll hit on some upcoming releases. Topps 5-star baseball pre-order. Bowman Chrome 2024 baseball. We'll get into that. Are you ready to start grading your cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Lefty, go to cgccards.com to start grading today. I'm ready to make some plays with CGC, actually. I'm thinking maybe some first to the market plays because they got some quick turnaround times. And also the play that I'm actually making is buying their old green label slabs in the old 9.5 gem mint, because you can send them into CGC and you can get new, fresh black label, the new black label CGC 10s. There'll be an automatic 10 if you buy the old green CSG 9.5s. There'll be an automatic CGC 10 in the new slab. And I just think they look better and they'll probably sell better for $5 a slab. So tell them Sports Card Strategy Show sent you. And nooffseason.com fam. Lot to talk about. Lefty and I are pumped. I mean, we could go in so many different directions, but we're trying to stay focused here. And the first thing I want to talk about, which actually goes into a bunch of other topics that we'll talk about today, Caitlin Clark draft night card craziness. Lefty, I put out content a couple weeks ago how I made $2,500 profit buying these draft night Caitlin Clark cards. I put it out on the Sports Card Strategy Show. I put out an Instagram reel on it at Sports Card Strategy. Follow me there. And, I felt great about it. The question is, do I still feel great about it, considering the cards that I sold for around $200 per are now selling for almost $600 consistently? I'm talking specifically about the 2024 Caitlin Clark Panini Instant WNBA Draft Night DN1 PSA 10s. What the F is going on, Lefty?
Bro, I talked about this on Lefty Cards, and I couldn't really get to you before just disclosing how much information, or like how much money you could have made. And it was like 27 grand if all of your 25 ones ended up at that 888 mark, which was the highest one that's sold, which of course that's an overstatement, because I know you didn't give 25 10s. I know not all of them are selling for $888. Clearly there is some hint going on that I'm sure that we will chat about at some point. But this card, guys, this is the Caitlin Clark card right now. Like, if you think about it, the Fever cards are not out yet. The other card that is potentially in circulation is the Panini card that we all got at the National that's still selling for about $60 raw. So it's like, this is the card right now that people are looking for, as Caitlin Clark is hammering the Rookie of the Year voting, because Angel Reese just has a season-ending injury like last week. So it's like, this girl who has turned the tides of women's basketball in the media, this is the card to have. And there's probably some other stuff going on, but are we profiting off of it? Yes, we are. So I would be interested to know how many of those followed us, because me, you, and Turner all did it, and we all did it in different fashions, and we all profited. Some of us profited more than others. But to get an all nines basically, and for me to still be $600 and something pro without even my PSA 10 is on auction for right now. It could clear that profit line alone. I could end up coming out of this with $1,200 to $1,500 profit. It's crazy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's ultimately, so like, on one hand, you do the math of what they're selling for now. And like, I would have, and yeah, like $27,000 would have been like every single one of my 10s selling for over $1,000, which, okay, the 882, but like, you're right though. Like the real math, I think, would have been, I probably could have profited more like 6,000 or maybe 7,000 instead of the 2,500 that I profited. But I got 21 10s. You didn't. But here's the thing.
I got one.
Do I feel bad? I ask this because I think it's a common issue in sports card investing and in the hobby. I think sometimes people feel bad because they sell something before it reaches its top peak sale. And I'll admit, when you texted me on Monday after, as you were kind of going live on Lefty Cards, I was out with my family, and I was actually at my son's football game, his freshman football game, and I was reading the text, and I was like, you start to feel the kind of, the feeling you get when your fantasy team loses You just
Yeah.
kind of feel like crap. I just started to feel like, man, did I mess that up? And then I looked at the data later, and like in preparation for the show, I'm thinking, what am I going to say on the show when Lefty and I talk about this? And here's where I landed. I think this is a common thing. I think we all probably struggle through this, where it's like, I profited, or first of all, I thought this is one of my biggest wins of all time. So I was like on cloud 9 until I saw that if I would have waited a little bit later, I could have maybe even tripled my biggest win of all time. And now I'm thinking, look, I've always told people you can't look at it that way.
Yeah.
And so I'm forcing myself to not look at it that way. I'm forcing myself to think, look, this is why I love what we do. This is a situation where not only did I win, not only did you and Turner win, but everybody that listened to the Sports Card Strategy Show, when we said this several months ago back in May when these cards came out, anyone that listened to us and bought these cards and followed this play in any way, whether they graded them with PSA or any other grading company, whether they sold them all raw, whether they probably creased half of them in the shipping process, it doesn't even matter. They probably still made money because of how hot these cards are. And obviously there was some hyperbole in there, but I think everybody won on this play, and people are still winning. Even the people who bought my cards at around $150 to $200 a piece are still winning. So when people, there's a lot of good friends that you and I have in the hobby, and they ask me all the time, how do you make this work? Like, how do you try to prospect and flip cards, and then you're selling during these selling markers when other people are buying in? Doesn't that mean that they're losing? And I say no, because we're not always trying to become the top comp. And this is a perfect example of why this works, because not only are we winning and profiting, and everybody in the family here at nooffseason.com are profiting, but people that are buying our cards are still profiting, which is why this works. And then obviously some people are holding, which is really why it all works. But, look, is the person who bought this card for $882 a couple of days ago on 54 bids going to profit on this card? I don't think so, because Lefty Topps printed 45,000 of these. So it's not like that's what shocks me about it the most. Not that Caitlin Clark can't get hot. Not that we can't all win on these plays, because you and I have been doing these plays for a couple years now in terms of Topps Now Panini Instant. So we've been on this for a while. But it's more that it's gone to this level of pricing at a 45,000 print run. Crazy.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, even if you look at I'm looking up the gem count right now on PSA. Doesn't look like it had. Oh yeah, there's 18,065 tens. I'm gonna break that down into $800 a piece. Like, even if it's not at 882 price, 882 times 1865 is quite the large market share. So it's like, if we are at that 882 price, that's $1,644,930 in this card. Like, I think we've got to say it, Paul. We've got to say it. I think there's some silliness going on in this.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I'm glad you brought
profiting on this, but I think there's some silliness.
So to translate for Lefty, we think that there could be some shilling on some of these. Now, what do you guys think? I mean, I'm not trying to create any drama. I'm not trying to get anybody all, puffed up and trying to, DM me about all this crap and turn it into something that it's not. But I mean, I have to agree with Lefty here, because my initial thought on Monday when Lefty was texting me this while he was live on Lefty Cards is that, for it to have gone from a realistic, because these were selling for $150 at Fanatics Fest on dealer tables, and then they were immediately selling on eBay for $150 to $200. Now, Caitlin Clark continues to go bananas on the court, and she's this phenom, and I get it. But to the point that we're talking about, 45,000 of these were printed. Anybody could get one. And they have graded well. They've graded probably better than any other Panini Instant card that I'm aware of or that I've participated in, which means
Except
there's
for
a
your
lot
boy,
of PSA
which
10s.
sucks.
I don't know the official pop count on the PSA 10s, but there's a lot of them. Like, they are
I just
not
gave it to
hard
you.
to find.
1865.
1865. So, I mean,
1,865 cards.
yeah. So 1865 PSA 10s, that they're easy to find. What Lefty and I are pontificating here is there some shilling happening on the bidding, especially from the PSA account? Because if you think about it, and Lefty's kind of come out and said this before on the Sports Card Strategy Show, that like what one could do if one's morals were a particular way would be that they could list a card through their PSA vault, and then they could bid on their own PSA vault listing, or really from any consigner, not just a PSA account, but from any consigner. You can bid on your own card. I can honestly say I've never done this, but like, you could do that. And do you guys think that's happening? Let us know in the comments below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Feel free to DM me at Sports Card Strategy. I hope I don't get a ton of these that are very dramatic, but I would like to know your thoughts, your intelligent thoughts, because you guys are an intelligent audience, on do you have evidence to believe from the past or from the present that there's some shilling going on here on some of these bids? Now, even on there are a lot of buy it nows and best offer accepted. So on those, Lefty, have you heard of those kinds of things being shilled? Obviously not where they'd be bid up with fake bids, but
no, what I think is happening here is I think there was potentially okay, let me ask you this question before we fully on say this is what's happening. When yours were selling, or when you were at the Culture Collisions, they were selling for about 100 and 120. That's about how you got all of your PSA 10s out for, right?
Yeah, but at Fanatics Fest, the dealers were selling them for 150. They were telling me they're all being paid in full for the 150. And then my sales were none of them were under 150. None of them were over 200. They were all between 150 and 200.
And when was that?
And that was like the last week in August. I mean, that was like very recently. It was like the last week in August. I listed them all. They all sold right away. And they were all in 7-day auctions where I listed like 3 or 4 per day. And, right in that prime time slot that we always talk about, 8 p.m. between 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern time was when they all started. I started about 3 or 4 of them per day for a week. They all sold in that week, paid for right away, shipped them out, and I was pumped. And now here we are less than 2 weeks later, and they've tripled in price.
Well, the one thing I will say is if you look at that, since the last week of August, she's had 23, 19, 19, 31, 28, 24, 25, 26, 4 double-doubles in that time.
Yeah.
A 1 triple-double. So it's like she is destroying, and I'll give her that. She's going to go – Indiana has turned their season around. They were really bad early on, losing 5 straight out the gate, and they've only lost twice, and they're both been to Minnesota in their last 10 games. Like, this team has totally turned it around, so I'm not saying that it's all shilling. But what I am saying is I think that there has been some shilling, thus that's driven the price market up. So then the other buy it nows are saying, okay, well, the auctions are going for $600, $700, $800 at times. I will pay $500 on a buy it now, immediately relist it. So there, I think with the shield, all in all, I think it's a bubble that's going to pop. And so I can't imagine that you should do not be buying right now. Don't go out and buy.
Yeah, let's underscore that. Don't buy these. There's really no more upside in these. I think I agree with Lefty. The 882, I would be surprised if anything goes over that 882 sale. But I agree. That's actually a very good explanation as to how this stuff can happen naturally, where maybe 1 or 2 of them go for this crazy price, and that maybe those are shilled, and then the rest of them are legit. But it potentially, all it takes is the 1 or 2 to be shilled on a higher pop card that's very accessible for people to, and the performance is legit. Like, she's been legit on the court. She's been on fire. And she has been a hot name for the last couple of years in the sports card market. Obviously, this isn't if this were like a player out of the blue, we'd be like, there's no way any of these are real. But it is Caitlin Clark. We've talked about it for a couple of years. Here's the other thing. I want to kind of say, other than let us know what you think in the comments at youtube.com/Paul Hickey, because we're curious, did you win on this? I don't think there's any way you could have lost unless you consider not being the top comp of all time a loss, which I don't think you should consider that to be a loss. But let us know in the comments what you think of all of this. Here's my kind of parting shot on this whole thing. We are darn good at picking the right cards. We really are, because I did the basketball card market update today, which you guys can all get on the feed, the Sports Card Strategy Show podcast feed, and it's at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. But this really is the only Caitlin Clark card this is the only Caitlin Clark card that's gone bananas like this. There are a million other Caitlin Clark cards, and I'm not saying that people aren't making money on other Caitlin Clark cards. That's obviously not what I'm saying. But looking at the data in the basketball card market update, there are Caitlin Clark cards that are PSA 10s that are down right now. There are some Caitlin Clark cards that are up right now. It's not like every single Caitlin Clark PSA 10 is doing this right now. It's this particular card that's doing this, which is crazy. But Lefty, you and I were on this. So go ahead and pat yourself on the back. There we have it. All right. I like to jock us when we're right about something. So I could have made $7,000 profit. I made $2,500 profit. I was on to the next one, and then people started DMing me, have you seen what these cards are doing? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure they're going up still a little bit. I was thinking maybe 250, maybe some at 225. Lefty's like, dude, these are at like 600 to 800. Nuts. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Wildly popular. But I will say, back to what you've said, we've always said sell with some meat on the bone. It's a super easy way to get out when you need to get out, is if you are not selling for the absolute 100% price top. And so, Paul, you shouldn't be upset. We always say we sell with the 70, 80% range, knowing that there could be a higher comp coming after us. But we're not trying to live a what if strategy. We're trying to live because of strategy. Because of this play, we are now moving into other plays and making more money. We're not playing the what if I had sold it 100%, because you know what, guys, that ends up being detrimental to you so many times. How many times have you heard like, man, I could make $500 on this, but I'm waiting for the $700. And then the next week it's worth $40. Get out and crystallize your profits, as we've said before. And so that's what we've done. And we're not mad about it. Now, I did hold one PSA 10 back, and I'm glad I did, because now I'm going to get $500-$600 for it potentially. But it's good stuff when we make a whole profit turn of $2,500 off of a $4 card. Come on.
Yeah, what you just said is very important, and I think it's going to lead us through into some of these next segments, and that is, what could I have done differently what should I do differently in the future that would make sense? It would be to hold one or two back, right? Like that's probably what I'm going to do moving forward. And I think so your initial thought is like, man, did I screw up? Like, could I have really 3x'd my already biggest win of all time? You're right. No, I don't feel bad about it. I shouldn't feel bad about it, but I want to learn from it. And Lefty, that's one thing that you've helped me and the entire audience look at throughout everything that we do, is you're always saying things are changing. How can we learn from it? We're in lockstep on that. And I think I'm going to continue to make these types of plays, and I hope that the audience does as well. And again, we'll talk more later on in the episode about some of them that are live right now. And I think what I'm going to do with some of these PSA 10s, especially when I get, 10 to 20 PSA 10s of the same card, is like hold 3 back, 4 back, 5 back, especially if it's a big name like this, because then if this does happen again, now you're in a situation where those 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 that you held back could end up being more profit than the other ones total that you sold. So why not just do it? And there's comps on record of the other ones where you feel safe holding 1 to 5 back because there's comps on record for it. So what's the worst case scenario? Well, maybe if it starts dipping, you list it. But if it's rising, maybe just ride that roller coaster and get a little bit more profit. So, all right, let's say hello to some people in the live chat. Chad Dyer, we said what's up to Chad, and Chad called us boomers for calling it rock music. I want to defend ourselves on the boomer comment, though. Not that there's anything wrong with being a boomer, but I will say we use StreamYard, Chad, and StreamYard calls it rock music. So Lefty and I actually aren't calling it rock music. We're just simply referring to what StreamYard calls it. So everyone at StreamYard's a boomer. There you go. All right, who's your card guy in the house? Richard Villarreal, Roderick Albus. We talked about him over in the Netherlands. Arturo Torres, Color Match Collect. What's up? One Galaxy Germ, the quote unquote best sports cards. And let's go over to IG, see who's in the live stream on IG. Dolphinator 2, Canna Cards, Color Match Collect over there as well. Look at that. Love that. J Bab, Bad Beat Breakers, JJ Accounting Services, Bowling, West Virginia, Hill Street Hauling, V-Bros Collectibles, Gavin Stitt, The Real Tatted Like a Foe. Is that you, Lefty? The Real Tatted. Finn, Bow Slice, 2022, K-Law Collection, Hester Sports Cards, G23 Cards, Best Collectors, Augusto Unofficial, D-Rock Jag, CJ Flynn, Dr. Paxifiv, YN Shark, Luxy, blah, 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 Mario, Rock Chalk Cards. What's up, everybody? It's really hard to read all the IG people, but I really like
English at this point.
I really like to give everybody a shout out real quick. George Schur in the house. The best sports card says go green. I say go white. Thank you, sir. Lefty, we're going to talk more about these print on demand plays like the Caitlin Clark play in a second. But first, what I want to do with you, since you texted in Turner and I this week about your Browns, is I want to run some backup QBs through the formula from an already graded perspective with you, and just take a look at if there's any that we should be looking at going into week 2. Let's start with your guy. Let's start with Jameis Winston, the backup for your Cleveland Browns. Before we run them through the formula, talk about the Browns and where you're at with this whole situation first.
Couldn't be more solidified in me thinking that Jameis Winston is going to start multiple games for these Browns. Like, the Browns are already looking for a way to get out of this $130 million contract. And with the new situation that is coming out, that he's just now come at, like, there's another Deshaun Watson case that has just hit the market, for those of you that don't know, that is previously to 2020. It's a little bit different. This lady's not a massage parlor person. It was an actual potential domestic violence, sexual assault that was on a real date. Like, this is different. It's not like was this a massage that went a little too far? This is not good. Plus, if there is any sort of NFL suspension from here on out for Deshaun Watson, the Browns can forego the $138 million guaranteed money. If that happens, Jameis will be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Now, this we've seen before. This is not a fast process. Last time it took over 2 years to get it all figured out. But with that being the case, he's the next guy up. Now, besides the sexual assault stuff that's going on with Deshaun Watson, who I'm not a fan of, although I did buy some of his cards this summer, I am not a fan of him. But besides that, he might be a better person, Paul, than he is a football player at this point. Which is,
God, that's saying something, isn't it? Holy crap.
He just is not who he was. And how many times are we going to give him the opportunity to be like, well, there's a good quarterback in there somewhere?
Yeah.
Man, well, you could say there's maybe a good guy in there somewhere, but he's just neither of those. And Jameis Winston deserves some attention. He did do some things in the NFL that more recently than Deshaun Watson. We saw this card go up a lot last year. This was a card that we invested in last year that I made money on. Jameis,
I mean, you also made money on Joe Flacco in this same situation where Deshaun Watson he got injured, but he hasn't been that. You're right. He has not been a good football player since he was with the Texans. And even if he were the perfect person off the field, the fact of the matter is that he's not a good football player right now. He did not help the Cleveland Browns in their playoff run last year. They brought in Jameis Winston, who basically is kind of the same version of what Joe Flacco was last year. I mean, minus the Super Bowl. I mean, Flacco had a Super Bowl championship and all that, of course. So they have different resumes. But Jameis Winston has been a starter in the league. He's been a backup in the league that's been somewhat effective. He's been very, very injury prone. So it's not like Winston necessarily has the same upside that Flacco has. But when you talk about a backup QB strategy, you're not the only one that's thinking this, because we have sales yesterday of a Jameis Winston 2015 Prism Silver PSA 10 for $125. Granted, that's only a Pop 36 card, so I don't know if any of you can go out and get one of those right now. But in terms of a Pop 663 card, just the base version of that, his 2015 Topps Chrome base PSA 10 sold on September 7th, which was Saturday. So that was before Deshaun Watson stunk it up. But that is a $13 sale. So somebody got, I think, a win there. And then a refractor. This is kind of crazy. The next day, the refractor, which should sell for at least double or triple of the base, sold for $7.20 on Sunday. So people have bought these Jameis Winston cards recently. Now the question is, can you do this, right? Because Lefty and I are clearly saying that we think Jameis Winston's going to step in. And I'm going on the record. I'm with Lefty. I think Jameis Winston is going to step in and be the starter for the Cleveland Browns pretty soon. Like I'd be shocked if that doesn't happen. Lefty outlined all the reasons for it. I totally agree. And other than the quarterback position, they have a pretty good team. So I think Jameis Winston can come in and just do normal stuff like Flacco did last year. They could be in pretty good shape. That whole division went 0-1 last week, I believe. So it's not like the Browns are out of it. And so now you're in what's that? The Steelers won? Oh, they look like crap. It felt like they went 0-1, but okay. I guess they got one. They got one on the board. I just assumed the Steelers won by, it was like 16-10 or something. What a horrible NFL week. Anyway, Jameis Winston, I think he's going to be the starter. I just don't know. Here's the deal with running him through the formula. When you look at his historical sales data, for example, of this Prism Silver, there's not going to be as much data because it's a low pop card, but it really hasn't sold for much more in recent years than it has. Like its last, I would say, realistic sale was in October of 2022 for $98, and then in December of 2022 for $76. That's a loss for the person who just bought it at 125 if you look at the historical data, which is what the formula looks at. So I don't know that one. Now the Topps Chrome base PSA 10, if we look at that one, we see that it was just purchased for $13 a few days ago. It sold when Jameis Winston was with the Saints. It did sell for $40 going into that year around the same time. So that was 2 years ago. And then it goes down to like where it is now, $13. So that one, it's possible to profit on that one. I think you have to sell it when he's announced the starter. I think, because I don't know like how they're going to do all that. So to me, it's kind of like threading the needle. And I don't know that there's a ton of upside to a Jameis Winston play. If you look at the Topps Chrome Refractor, sold for $7.20. So I think this is where you say, okay, it sold for $27 back around that similar time frame in 2022, fall of 2022, and then it's been around like $10, $10 to $15 since then. I think you have to ask yourself, if I can buy it for these prices, then it's probably not a loss, but it's definitely not a guaranteed win either, just based on the historical market data of when Jameis Winston has stepped in as a starter. So, Lefty, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a fade on Jameis for those reasons from a sports card standpoint, but I'm very conservative. What do you like? Do you see upside here with the Browns?
I do. Yeah, because I think the Browns are different than the Saints, and they're different than the situation he was in Florida. Like, this is a team that has every piece together but a quarterback at this point. They've got names all over that wide receiver room that are electric and are willing to work together. They've got a stout defense. They've got good running backs. They have a healthy line that's coming back really soon. Like, both tackles were injured last week, but like, they looked terrible against the Cowboys largely because they couldn't pass the ball. I mean, like, put Jameis in and you might have a chance at making that at least a one possession game against the Cowboys. And so, like, there was a legit 3rd and short situation at the end of the game, and there was like 3 wide receivers open, and he decided to rush to the right and take a sack. Like, oh my, I'm just so done with it. But I think, like, if Winston does come in, I think the likelihood of him having a higher ceiling than he has previously at other places that he's gotten in the game, I think is the Browns have one of the biggest fan bases in football, and then if he's able to do anything, then it's going to be like, it's going to skyrocket his value, I believe. If Joe Flacco got a double or triple increase last year on like a couple of games, if they put in Jameis now or in 2 or 3 weeks and he's able to lead this team to the playoffs, this could be a very, very big gain on this card.
All right, there's 3 more backup QBs I want to talk about. I think one of them I like more than Jameis, and I don't disagree with Lefty on this. I'm just more conservative from a numbers standpoint, and I see where you're at though, Lefty, with the upside of the Browns. That totally makes sense. I agree with that part, and I agree. I mean, he does have draft capital. He does have like a low pop count. If you can get these cards for the target price, which is basically what I read off, I would steer clear of the Prism Silver. I'd go for the Topps Chrome cards that I listed, just because they're cheaper and more accessible. So, which is kind of goes hand in hand when you think about it. They're probably cheaper because they're more accessible. But I think those have high floors and based on the price. And so why not? Like Lefty did last year with Flacco. I mean, he did it and he made money. He made money in the exact same play later on in the year with Flacco. Saw it coming, bought some Flacco cards, made money. He's doing it again with Jameis, so I like it. If you're watching right now, we're looking at data from Market Movers. So if you want to get the same data we get, go to marketmoversapp.com, use the promo code NOOFFSEASON, and you save 20% for life. And we're talking about the formula like we do always. And if you want the formula, which is a recommendations engine based on the data from Market Movers, go to nooffseason.com, just get a free 30-day trial there. So the guy that I like better is Drew Lock. And there's some historical evidence anecdotally along with some of the data here. Drew Lock has cards that are 4 years more current than Jameis. He's got not number 1 overall draft pick capital, but he's got solid draft capital. He's got a higher Prism base PSA 10 pop count, which makes it easier to make a Drew Lock play. Danny Dimes is horrible. We all know that. We've all been talking about it. I've eliminated him from being a buy at nooffseason.com anymore. He was a thread the needle formula-based already graded play based on, the data. So the data is not always right. The data is not always right. It wasn't right with Danny Dimes, so I crossed him off the list. But Drew Lock has some cards, and we saw it with Tommy DeVito last year. When the Giants have a backup quarterback come in that adds any kind of energy to that team in that market, it can really take off from a hype standpoint. So Drew Lock won a game last year in relief of Geno Smith out in Seattle. He's got some good cards. I'm holding some Drew Lock cards right now that I bought in the offseason. His Prism base PSA 10 from 2019 sold a week ago for $8. His Prism Laser from 2019, these are PSA 10s, sold 2 days ago for $32. And he's got serial numbered cards, Prism cards that are out there available right now that I've been looking at on eBay. So we're going to have Drew Lock in the formula at nooffseason.com this week. So check back on that at nooffseason.com. But if we were to kind of run this through the formula and look at like, okay, 365 days, like let's look at what his Prism base went for. I mean, this offseason in May, it went for $23. So from 8 to 23, the formula is going to like that a little bit. It's going to give it a positive ROI. When he played in relief of Geno Smith, it sold for, double. So that's, $16, $20. So there's not a whole lot of upside, but if you can get it for $8, the formula is going to like it better than the Jameis card. What I've been doing though is going a little bit more into the variations of his Prism. So like the Prism Laser, for example, will have more upside. It sold for $32 2 days ago. In just this offseason when he signed with the Giants, it went for almost 60. So cards like the Prism Laser make more sense. Cards like the Red Ice make more sense. The Red Ice PSA 10 2 days ago went for $30. When you look at that historically, you're going to see more upside there. The Red Ice did sell this summer for $40. So, Drew Lock's got to come in and do something for his cards to move up, but I just kind of like the Drew Lock play slightly better than the Jameis play, but I think they're very similar. Lefty, what do you think about Drew Lock and the New York Giants?
I think it might be quicker to the starting spot than Jameis here. And I was thinking that Jameis may have it in week 3 or 4. Like Drew Lock, Danny Dimes looked horrific on Sunday. And there was only one quarterback that looked worse than him. And that Panthers quarterback over there that's making us look booty hole, Bryce Young.
Yep. I'm holding some Bryce Young right now.
So am I. So is Turner. So it's like it's just looking bad for that right now. So, but Drew Lock, I think we've seen him as a more consistent quarterback. Jameis has good old crab legs. Winston has done some cool things, but he's also thrown a frick ton of interceptions. So,
all right, up next, hate to do this to you, Lefty, but Aiden O'Connell, because your guy Gardner Minshew crapped the bed.
No, he didn't.
He crapped the bed. Antonio Pierce said that this was all about ball security, and Minshew fumbled a couple times, I believe, over the weekend. So, come on. You got to put AOC in. You got to see what you have in AOC. We know who Gardner Minshew is, Lefty.
He's a winner.
Know who Gardner Minshew is.
He's a winner, baby.
He's a mediocre, at best, NFL starting quarterback. AOC, we don't know who he is.
You're telling me that 257 yards, 76 completion percentage, and 1 touchdown with a 95.1 quarterback rating is going to get supplanted by a backup?
I think they should. I think they got to see what they have in AOC. I think he had good chemistry with Devontae Adams last year. And I don't know. I mean, Gardner Minshew, he's a backup. Gardner Minshew's a career backup. They gotta put AOC in and see what they got in him. And AOC's cards are going up. I'm not saying to buy Aiden O'Connell. I don't know that the formula really loves him, but I'm just saying that they gotta give it. They gotta give it a shot. And Minshew's cards have tanked, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The market doesn't like what Minshew's performance. Minshew's cards have kind of continued to go down.
That is
so. True. I know you love him, but I just had to throw this into the discussion.
No, I mean, you're probably right. Like Minshew isn't going to like blow the doors off of something. I just think he's better than people give him credit for, and that makes me that I'm just fighting for my dog.
You love him. It's
okay.
okay.
For my dog,
Aiden O'Connell's Prism Base PSA 10 sold 2 days ago for $11.50. So what we're doing here, everybody, is we're looking at is there potential to make money buying backup quarterbacks right now that could potentially get put into the starting lineup any week? And we're identifying teams with kind of subpar or worse quarterback play, or just average, but not solidified starter worthy situation. And we're looking at, okay, what is their backup doing to prospect? We've talked about Jameis Winston coming in for Deshaun Watson. We've talked about Drew Lock coming in for Danny Dimes, and we're talking about potentially Aiden O'Connell coming in for Lefty's guy Gardner Minshew. And there is you can double up on Aiden O'Connell's base prism based on the formula. So there's some opportunity there. And up next, last but not least, because he's probably the guy we should all be talking about, is Malik Willis. So Malik Willis, so the reason why I didn't really talk about Malik Willis on Monday's show is because I'm not really totally sold that the Packers aren't going to make some kind of move at quarterback to fill in for Jordan Love while he's out. I mean, I watched Malik Willis play in Tennessee the last couple of years, and he didn't get a lot of time last year, but he got some time in his rookie season, and he was like watching somebody in quicksand try to play quarterback. I mean, he just was really, really slow with everything he did. And he gave defenses a lot of time to get to him, and boy, did they get to him. He just did not look like he could play the quarterback position in the NFL. And his cards are actually up. Not surprisingly, with Jordan Love's injury, his cards are actually up quite a bit. So for his Prism rookie autograph PSA 10, you got to pay $125. For his rookie ticket auto PSA 10, you got to pay $125. For his silver Prism PSA 10 now, you got to pay $60. For his base Prism, you got to pay $24. Maybe he comes in and starts for Jordan Love while he's out, but I just don't.
Yeah, they've already told him. They've already said he's the starter.
Yeah, so I just don't think. I mean,
they don't
for
even
his cards
have
to go up. He'll have to really play. He'll have to really play well now for those cards to go up. Yeah, because they're already up quite a bit. So I'm fading Malik Willis. But am I wrong, Lefty? What do you think?
No way. You are completely. Malik Willis is garbage. Like, this dude is horrific. Worse than small hands Kenny. Like Malik
Worse
Willis.
than Kenny Pickett. That says it all. I mean, if you know anything about how Lefty feels about Kenny Pickett, that should say it all.
I think Malik Willis, they gave him a screenplay or something like that in the end of this Packers game to just get him something, and he took a sack. It was just he can't even look at the other. He's got the yips or something, man. It's just bad.
He took. I'm telling you, Max and I, my son, we watched him play a couple of years ago for the Titans. Just watching the game at home, kind of rooting for him as a rookie.
Bad.
He got in there for Tannehill, I think, when Tannehill was injured, if I remember correctly. And Willis just looked. I mean, he just looked. He looked like he's just going to take a sack. Like he's going to run backwards and take a sack on every single play.
Yeah, it's bad. I think more than anything, Malik Willis might be the starter next week. But if Jordan Love is going to miss any time, they're bringing in somebody else.
Bailey Zappi is what I read. Now, I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that wouldn't be. Now, that could be a play. I don't know what I looked at last time I looked at Bailey Zappi's cards. They weren't super cheap. They were actually it would take Bailey Zappi coming in and playing well for his cards to go up based on the prices. But I mean, if you can get a Bailey Zappi, say Prism PSA 10,
saying that they could potentially bring in Jimmy Garoppolo.
There you go. I mean, so that's why I just don't think there's anything to Willis. Here's what I will say. Regardless, you should sell Jayden Reed right now. I teased that on Monday's show. Jayden Reed, my guy from Michigan State University, put up a big game with Jordan Love. For those of you who are kind of new to this, I will just cut straight to a tip here. It's all about context during the football season. And the context around Jayden Reed is his quarterback's out for 3 to 6 weeks. And he had a massive week 1. And uninformed people will just look at that massive week in week 1. And they'll say, this dude is a second-year wideout with really cool cards. Jayden Reed's cards are up right now. You got to sell Jayden Reed. Regardless of the card, I think you got to sell Jayden Reed right now because I think it's going to look bad for him over the next however long Jordan Love's out. I think it's going to be bad for Jaden Reed.
Absolutely.
Shane Graham in the house. Good to see you. Old Money Cards in the house. Catawaba Valley Sports Cards. George Schur. I think we already gave him a shout out. Before we go to our next segment, I'm going to try to speak English here as I shout out Augusto Unofficial. I talked about D-Rock Jag, Coastline, Popolo's Cards, Pop 11 Sports Cards, Husky Cards and Collectibles, Knowledge for Cards, Scott Van Wart, Mario, Rock Chalk Cards, Live Family Cards, Elena S. Kotak, Collector Creative, T-Dub Sports Cards, Golf Nerman, Worm Dog Cards, Orange County Sports Cards, Albright Collects, Clarence Misfit Cards, the J-Mac Cards. So many people chiming in on Instagram. Lefty, not too long before I start getting trolled by people on Instagram, because people are going to be like, hey, this Hickey guy just shouts out any profile that comes in on his IG live, and it's going to be like Fart Knocker Cards and like, probably worse coming up. Sean Red 5 Cards in the house. What's up? All right, Lefty, I'm excited to talk to you about this. This is probably the topic I was most excited to talk to you about on today's show. Buy or fade, Tops Now football, Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. Tops Now, for those of you who don't know, it is Wednesday, September 11th. As of the statement that I'm making right now, as we're live, / you guys are listening to it on the podcast app, so we're recorded, same thing. You have 1 day left, 1 day to buy these cards. If you're listening on Thursday or Friday, it might be too late. If you're listening on Wednesday, you have some time to buy these cards. Here's the deal. It's cool. It's what they did with Xavier Worthy on Thursday night, and that's already ended. So what Tops Now has done is they've said, okay, we're going to put out strategically these unlicensed cards of the top players' debuts from the 2024 draft class. We're going to give them an RC shield. We're going to airbrush the uniform from the kind of front-facing action shot so that it doesn't look too horrible. You can tell it's the team's jersey and helmet, kind of. But there's no team branding because the Tops doesn't have the licensing. Here's the other thing they've done. They've shortened the window of how long these cards are available for, and they're dropping in their autographs randomly as hits into these releases. So there's hits of, there's 1 of 1s, there's out of 5s, out of 10s, and out of 25s. And they're going to be inscribed for Caleb Williams' first win. Who knows if the signature is going to look anything like this? Lefty, so they're doing the same thing. They've got Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. If you buy 1 card, it's $12 a card. If you go, now there's 5 and 10 options, but if you want the cheapest entry point per card, you buy 20, and then it comes down to $8.50 per card. You get a chance at these autos. Here's the deal. The autos are redemptions. Okay, Lefty, I'm going to give you one more nugget of information before I ask you buy or fade. People are pre-selling these. They're asking anywhere from, this is kind of crazy, they're asking anywhere from $6.45 all the way up to $34.95 per card for the Caleb. It's pretty similar for the Jaden. Just for the sake of time, I won't read everything for the Jaden, but it's pretty similar. Now, in terms of pre-sales sold already on eBay, let's just look at what the Calebs are selling for. So you got one that sold for $6.45, one that sold for $7.99. Looks like the highest one is $8.98. No, here we go. Here's one for $19.95. So we got a comp. We got a comp for $19.95, but some of them more realistically are selling for around $7 or $8. So at a $8.50 cost per card, which is going to go up a little bit because of taxes and shipping, that's going to be more realistically like a $9.25 per card. All things considered, you can grade these. You can potentially hit an auto. Lefty, buy or fade the Caleb and the Jaden?
I think the thing that even makes it a question for me is the autos will be there, but you're going to have a small chance of getting those anyway. It's pretty much like it's the same sort of sentiment of trying to hunt an auto in a break. So not really interested in that. I think the part that makes it a little more interesting is they also have base card parallels as well. So there also is the regular potential parallels you could have. The redemptions makes it less fun. Like it's like instead of pulling an auto out of the pack, you pull a thing that takes even longer to get in. And with it being at $8.50 a card at the cheapest parallel, like at the cheapest amount of cards I can buy, not airbrushed, I think I'm going to fade for a better opportunity.
Okay. I don't blame you. And I'm glad you brought up the base card parallels, because you're absolutely right. We needed to talk about that. They've got a 49 blues, 25 purples, 10 reds, 5 oranges, and 1 gold for each player. They're going to have a serial number on it. It's going to look fantastic, no doubt. The parallels are going to look fantastic. The base cards don't look too bad. I will say, I mean, I think I'm a fan of Caleb and Jayden. I like both of them as players. I thought about this all week. For the first 48 hours that I thought about it, I was exactly where you are right now. I was thinking, look, this is a fade because it feels like a break even to me. I don't know if I want to put all my time into a break even though it would be fun. And then today, I listened to Andy and Carter, who put out the Football Card Quest show yesterday, and they were talking about it. And just them talking about it, they made good points, of course, but just them talking about it made me rethink it again for today's show, because I knew it was going to be a big topic of discussion between you and I. And then reflecting on the whole Caitlin Clark situation that we talked about earlier on in the show, I started to think, why would I not do it? Because having the inventory is important during the football season for these guys to try to get the win. And the stars started to align for me, thinking, okay, there's more positives than negatives. So even though the autos are a redemption, even though the fact that I'm probably not going to get a parallel or an auto, even though I'm probably going to break even if I pre-sell them, what if one of these takes off like the Caitlin Clark Panini Instant took off? What if Jaden Daniels is a kind of a Cam Newton comp in terms of his stats in his rookie year or his first 2 years? He's not like a comp exactly physically like Cam Newton, but just in terms of like rushing and being able to pass the ball, getting those rushing touchdowns with the high draft capital in a big market like Washington and in a big market like Chicago for Caleb. I think all it will take for either of these guys' markets to go through the roof, where everyone's salivating for any card of these two, is really not that much. I mean, I think, and Caleb plays some primetime games. He plays in, some island games, as I heard Andy Kaysen refer to them as, which makes a lot of sense, where those are the games where it's like Thursday night football or Sunday night football, or maybe later on in the year, Saturday night football. These games where it's like the only game happening and everyone's tuned into that game. Caleb Williams is in quite a few. And so I think because I can buy 20 of these, it's pretty expensive. It's going to be like almost $200 for 20 of them. But because I can buy 20 of these, and I have so many different possibilities of making money, down to grading them and being first to the market at with PSA, or even some of them to CGC, who knows? But being first to the market with graded Caleb cards and graded Jaden cards with a chance for an auto, a chance for the parallel, a chance to pre-sell them for maybe double or triple what people should be buying them for on eBay, I think I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I think I'm going to buy both of these. I mean, it's a lot of money though. So I don't blame you or anyone else out there who wants to fade them. I just think, but the other thing I'm going to do, Lefty, is I'm going to continue to watch, and I highly recommend that everyone else out there continues to watch PaniniAmerica.net. They haven't done anything with the Panini Instant since the preseason, but I would continue to watch PaniniAmerica.net for what they're doing, because they drop serial numbered autos. They drop serial numbered, short printed, like these Jaguar and Tiger stripe things. And the minute someone has a big performance with high draft capital. I was shocked they didn't do anything with Xavier Worthy, just even in like a tiger stripe out of 5 or whatever from his big performance. I would continue to refresh PaniniAmerica.net for their NFL Panini instance. And I would continue to watch what does Topps.com do with Caleb and Jayden and others from the draft class. I said to fade the Worthy play on Monday. I stand by that. But I think I'm going to go ahead and dip in and give me 120 pack of the Caleb and 120 pack of the Jaden. So just because there's so many different possibilities for it. Bert Fields is in the house. So I think we're going to get to some questions real quick at the end of the show. But first, I did want to talk about a couple different things. Bowman U versus Panini College. And hit on that real quick before we get into our top 5 sports card opportunities to buy, graded, and flip. And upcoming releases. So just real quick, I just want to say we talk about the Topps Now and the PaniniAmerica.net. There's also Panini College, which I talked about Monday, so I won't get too into that. It's NIL cards for athletes currently from I think they have Texas, Nebraska, and one other school that's escaping me. Ohio State.
It's a bunch
Ohio
of schools
State.
that you're like, what?
Yeah, it's Ohio State. So those 3 schools, they're going to be adding more schools for sure. By the time you listen to this, they might have more schools than that. Bowman U football, Bowman Next football. So I was a bit underwhelmed here. I'm just going to kind of keep it short and simple. Lefty, feel free to disagree with me on any of these. We have DJ Lagway. Don't care about him. Carson Beck. There's way better cards of Carson Beck. Antario Brown from NIU. They had the big upset over Notre Dame, I believe, over the weekend. Jackson Dart, who's on fire. He has way better cards. Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU quarterback, and Cade Klubnik. I don't know about Garrett Nussmeier, but I know Cade Klubnik has better cards than this. I don't see anything to really get me excited about the Bowman U now. Let me know, anybody, if you feel like I'm wrong, drop a comment below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Let me know if I'm wrong. Lefty,
the only Garrett Nussmeier cards that are out there are Leaf cards as well. So it follows the same narrative as Miller Moss, which I talked about on the Lefty Card show the other day. I think this is the only one that potentially interests me. Cade Klubnik is just I don't think he's good. Jackson Dart is very good, but I think he has some other autos in a different set. Of course, Carson Beck, everyone knows him. Who cares about DJ Lagway? And Antonio Brown is just trying to get a card from them beating Notre Dame. So it's exactly what you said. Nussmeier is the only card that is a potential for me. LSU has looked good, but losing to USC in week 1, losing to USC in week 1 doesn't bode well for his long term in the season. So I think there are other quarterbacks that I like a lot better than these 5 as a buy right now. So like if they had the guy from Nebraska in here,
Dylan Raiola. I talked about him on Monday.
If they had Dylan in here, yes. If they had Miller Moss in here, yes. If they had even the guy from Notre Dame, like the Duke player, maybe
Riley Leonard.
Yeah, but so there's some guys that I would be considering, but not these 5.
Field Cards asks, is this the best allocation of your resources? The only way to really do Topps Now is to use their rewards to reduce your costs. Yes, it is, Field Cards, and here's why. Lefty and I and everybody, a lot of people in the nooffseason.com family have made a crap ton of money on Topps Now cards.
Several times.
Way that they've actually, and I'm going to do a report. I'm really excited about this report, by the way. I'm going to do a report at nooffseason.com at the end of the year. It'll be like a 2024 recap, and it'll break down like what were the best ways that we made money during 2024. And I'm going to say right now, like, I guarantee you, I just know that these Topps Now and Panini Instant plays are going to be at at or near the top of like the most consistent ways to profit, because the reason, and you can use your rewards points to reduce costs, but you don't need rewards points. I would add the fact that you get rewards points as another reason to do these plays, more so than I would say you need rewards points to reduce your costs. You're already reducing your costs when you buy them in bulk. So like, for example, on this Garrett Nussmeier, and I'm not saying to buy this, I'm just going to use this as an example of what Lefty and I and a lot of people in our Sports Card Strategy Show audience have done for the last couple of years, is we'll look at this and we'll go, okay, when you buy 20, what's your total cost? It brings it down to $5 a card. Now you're in a situation where you look at eBay and they're pre-selling a lot of times for $2 or $3 more than that. The pre-sale listings will say these will be shipped when Topps or Panini gets them to us. It works with both companies. But when you do that math and you're able to pre-sell it for a few dollars more than what your actual cost is going to be, including your tax and shipping, now you're in a situation where you know you can make a profit right away with the plain white envelope at 69 cents on the shipping cost, or even $1.25 on the shipping cost. Some of these will sell for $20 just because people want them, right? And they don't want, for whatever reason, they pay more than what they pay Panini or Topps. A lot of times it's just simple economics of, well, I got to pay Panini or Topps $9. I'd rather pay this other person $7. And now the person that you're like, you as the seller, is making maybe $1 a card. Here's the thing though, where we've really made the most money is we use that and we say, I'm not necessarily going to make $20 total, $1 per card on the 20 cards. I'm going to use that data as an indicator of the market's interest in this card. And then I'm going to grade most of them, if not all of them. And I'm really going to go from like a $4 to $5 per card entry fee plus a $20 grading fee. So say $25 to $27 total into the card, knowing that will probably sell for 50 to 100. And then you multiply that by close to 20, because if it's with Topps, you're close to 100% gem rate. If you're Panini, you're probably more like a 50% gem rate. But that's where you really win, is you're extending your ability to profit on a per card basis by grading them and then having a full inventory of like 20 to 25 of these. And now you're in a situation where you're profiting sometimes $20 to $50 to $70 per graded card. And now it become, you times that by, 15 to 20. And now you're in a situation where you're making over $1,000 on a play. And all you're doing is just clicking buy, receiving it, including it in a grading submission, getting the slabs back, listing them. Like, it's very little time spent for a really, really high return. So I would say, unequivocally, yes, it is actually, the data says that it is the best allocation of my resources when it comes to sports cards. I appreciate the question, but I that's why we're spending a lot of time on it, especially in today's show with the hyper relevance of these Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels cards right now. Should you buy them? The Bowman U next, things like that. If you could buy, Lefty, if you could buy 20 Victor Wembanyama based prisms at they go for around $25. If you could buy 20 of them for say $20 a card and know that you were likely to get a 60 or above gem rate and the rest 9s, and the PSA 10 upside of that card is over $100, we'd be doing that. Like I'd probably be putting as much money as I possibly could into that, like maybe my entire bankroll into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of the equivalent of that with the Topps now and the Panini instinct.
Yeah, I'm interested in this comment that just came up. Just bought a center auto on Panini Instant, Lefty. The only ones that I see are available are the out of 25s. So, Mark, did you end up buying an out of 25 center auto from the U.S. Open? Because that's pretty interesting. That's appealing to me.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar, Lefty has a show called Lefty Cards every Monday. He loves tennis. He talks about tennis on the Sports Card Strategy Show, as well as does deeper dives in on Lefty cards. And thanks for bringing that up there in the comments. But Yannick Sinner has Panini Instant. There's a lot of different, we get asked a lot of questions about Topps Now, Panini Instant. Should I do this? Should I do that? I would say 90% of the time we're fading them, but we're looking all the time at opportunities. Yeah, so this is an interesting one too.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Thanks for the comment. We'll try to get to at least shouting out everybody. Was that Mark Drzezinski? What's up, Mark Drzezinski?
Yes,
and Joel Kaplan in the house. Good to see you guys. All right. So top sports card opportunities to buy, graded, and flip. We don't have a ton of time left on today's episode. So you got to go to nooffseason.com and check out the formula-based sports card rankings to get all of this. But I will say, Lefty, Joe Burrow stunk it up in week 1. And so I looked at the formula today before the show, and I noticed all of a sudden, I didn't think his prices would dip so much, but because he stunk it up in week 1, his prices dipped even further, making it, I think, a no-brainer to go out and try to get all of the 4 Joe Burrow cards I'm going to list off real quick. 2020 Select Concourse Silver PSA 10, last comp $93. Formula says 55% ROI on that card at a performance spike. You know Joe Burrow will have a performance spike. You know he will. Select Club Level Silver PSA 10, $178, 51% ROI on a performance spike. Here's the one we all have a lot of, especially Turner and I. Prism Base 307 PSA 10. I want to go buy more. $103 right now. I don't care that I paid $125 per during the offseason. I want to go buy more of this. This was a $350 card during their playoff run a few years ago. I'm not saying it's going to get up to that. I think it's easily over a $200 card sometime this football season. That's a 71% ROI. So people that are panic selling on Joe Burrow's 2020 Prism Base PSA 10, I think are silly. I think that's a buy right now. So does the formula. And then the biggest one that's a little bit harder to find, but the 2020 Mosaic NFL debut Reactive Orange PSA 10 is a big ROI. $91 right now, 76% ROI on that. And for those of you who don't know, the formula takes into account all of your fees, your shipping, your marketplace fees, your taxes, all that stuff. And it's very, very conservative. So I think you will make money if you're able to get in at the target cost on these cards. And if you need the information again, either just hit rewind on your podcast app, or just better yet, go get a free 30-day trial at nooffseason.com to get these opportunities and a ton more. Lefty, there's a couple more that I want to hit on real quick. I want your opinion on Ronald Acuna Jr.'s 2017 Bowman Draft Chrome Refractor PSA 10. The data says that's currently a $60 card, but that it should be a $135 card next summer when he comes back from his injury. That's an 80% ROI. Do you agree with what the formula says in terms of what the upside of that card is? Are we overvaluing that card as something that can come up that high during the summer? Are we even maybe playing it a little too conservative? What do you see with Ronald Acuna Jr. heading into next season?
Well, I think the Braves are stink. They stink right now. Yeah, yes, the Braves, what I think of them they are a stink. I'll just put it that way.
They're buns.
They're buns. They're major buns. But what I'll say is Ronald Acuna Jr. is still one of the best players out there. I mean, there's an opportunity where Shohei Ohtani could be the first 50-50 player next week. Like, he might be the first 50 home run, 50 stolen base player. The only other guy that could probably do that is this guy right here. Like, you think Acuna is not going to come out from his 40-70 season and be like, I can hit 10 more home runs if I scale back running a little bit? Like, Ronald Acuna is the only guy I think that could potentially, and maybe Bobby Witt. Maybe Bobby Witt could do that too. But these guys are studs, and this one is on the shelf, and you can get this card for $60. The only unfortunate part about this card specifically is it's not high in circulation. The pop count is low. And so it's a card that not very many people see all the time. And it's not the card that people gravitate towards when they think Ronald Acuna cards. But I do think because it has a low pop count, it could gain it could gain steam a lot faster than some of the large profile cards. This could go from 60 to 90 in maybe one transaction rather than 10 transactions. So I overall, I love the Ronald Acuna play. I'm not sure if this is the one I would put my money in on, but I don't know where I would put it in the $60 realm otherwise. So if the formula likes it, I like it. I trust the formula enough at this point. We've made enough wins on cards that I didn't expect anyway, that I think this is a good win, and it's a conservative win.
Love it. CGC Cards in the house on X. Good to see CGC Cards. Of course, perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. I think I might be going to CGC Cards for some of these Panini Instant Tops Now plays that we've been talking about, because they have a super fast turnaround time right now. Andy Kaysen has been saying it's like 5 days, which is that's unstoppable right there. Okay, real quick.
Those Panini, those instant cards coming back in 5 days would be sick.
Right, exactly. I think that's a great, and instant, or Panini takes forever to ship them to you, but Topps doesn't. So maybe it's the part of the Caleb and Jayden play we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
that might be what I do on some of those. Okay, now we know PSA is going to give
slab the redemption,
and the CGC pristine 10s look sick, fire.
Yeah.
They're the pristine, and so if you think about it, you're more likely to get a pristine 10 on a Topps Now than on any other card, because they have the highest gem rates at PSA. I would put money on the fact that at CGC, you would be able to increase your chances of a CGC pristine 10. And I'd like to see some sales data on that. So I might try to make that happen myself. Real quick, I have a quick go where they ain't. Victor Wembanyama. We all know It's no secret. It's no secret that I love me some Wemby. Victor Wembanyama, looking at, his cards, he's been high on the raw to grade formula rankings, but right here on the already graded to graded, still graded show, it's time that we probably start looking at adding some Victor Wembanyama already graded cards into the formula-based rankings, because it is the time where people finally don't care as much about Victor Wembanyama, and that's what we like. We like to go where they ain't. So
I've been waiting for this day.
That's a little teaser to check out nooffseason.com soon for Wemby, his player profile there, and where he stands in the formula-based rankings on the already graded tab. So real quick, Lefty, let's go through the releases this week. And it'll give you an opportunity to talk about one of the releases, which is right up your alley. And I know you talked to our friend Aram Layton of justbaseball.com a little bit about this release. I'm going to go through all of the releases first, and then we'll circle back around to 2024 Bowman Chrome Baseball, which actually releases today. So that's the one we're going to talk about in a second, but also releasing today, Panini Spectra Basketball 23-24, 2024 Score Football. So these are going to be more of the 2024 rookies in here. It'll be interesting to see how the action shots look. In the past, they've been in the college uniforms, but sometimes with the pro team name and the pro helmet on there. So there could be some score football plays if you move fast. What's also interesting is 2023 Topps Motif Football releases this Friday. That's more Topps unlicensed cards with 2023 rookies in them. A lot of people are saying that Panini a lot of people are saying that Topps missed a big opportunity with their unlicensed releases in September here by not including some 2024 rookies in the release. So interesting there. SP Game Used CHL Hockey. I don't think there's any market for that. Unfortunately, that releases today. So Lefty, let's go back up to 2024 Bowman Chrome Baseball. Talk about it.
Yeah, I'm excited about a couple of these players. I think this has one of the most strongest versions of the 2020 or of the Chrome checklist than it has in a long time. Like in the past, we have said stay away from this one because it's all these international guys that have been taken forever and a half to get to the majors. But there's a couple of guys in this set that I really like. And so I said, okay, Aram, put me on a couple of these guys. Is there a few that we should really be looking at? And I sent him the guys that I was really excited about. And I said, should I fade any of these guys that I am on? And he goes, no, all the ones you were on are great. And they're studs on that guy. And so first off, that's awesome to hear from a guy, that it knows more than anyone. And he says, you're on the same ones that I'm on. But these are the guys that I'm on. Do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
Go for it.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen into the, let's see. I'm going to put it up here. Boom. Okay. So this is a guy that I'm very excited about. I had a couple of texts today that said, who should I chase if I'm going to do breaking, which we don't recommend? Who should I chase? And I was like, well, I don't recommend you do breaking, but these are the guys that we are chasing right now. Leo DeVries is a guy that was a #1 international prospect. Definitely a guy we're going to be looking for. Definitely a guy down the road, similar to Santos, where he's on this San Diego Padres young core team that's going to be growing very fast. So the Padres, Leo DeVries, probably the #1 chase in this product. Next, we have Pablo Guerrero, which is the son of Vladimir Guerrero, brother to Vladdy Jr., already getting autos in a Rangers uniform, who his dad played for. He's already growing pretty consistently. Of course, I wouldn't buy this one, but there was one that was sold earlier today for about $40. This guy right here, Thayron Lorenzo, he's a guy that was traded recently from the Dodgers, but a guy that has a lot of high profile. Aram loves his makeup as a hitter, which is really good. Miles Naylor, he has both of his brothers are on the Guardians. Bo Naylor and Josh Naylor are both on the team already, and both have had looks at being very prolific scorers. Miles Naylor could potentially be the best one of all of them, and he's playing for the A's. The next guy is Eduardo Tate. He's another guy that I believe he is also a catcher. Yes, he's also a catcher. A lot of catchers in this release, but he's a guy that has the offensive profile to be a very good card. And then a guy named Jeremy Rodriguez. So those are the guys that we really like in this product. There are going to be situations where this product is going to be affordable. Probably not right now, but hold on to this podcast, play it back in about 3 months, and then go after these guys that we're talking about.
Well done, Lefty. A lot of great opportunities out of 2024 Bowman Chrome baseball. And to your point earlier, that's not always the case with this release, because it's a lot of international guys, not highly drafted players like Bowman Draft and even Bowman Baseball. So Bowman Chrome baseball, very different. Lefty did a great job of breaking it down. I did want to answer real quick before we hit you with the outro rock music, Chad Dyer, which is StreamYard's phrase, not ours. But anyway, great question came in from Best Sports Cards, the Best Sports Cards, who also said Go Green Paul. So I wanted to make sure I really did a good job answering this. He asks about,
you and your
they ask about Caitlin Clark 198 Panini Instant that dropped recently. Question is buy in bulk and grade. And here's, I'm going to say yes. And here's why. There's 3 days left on this. You could do the whole thing that we talked about. You can pre-sell some of them. The pre-sales are going for as high as $8, which to Field Cards' point may not be worth making $1 a card. But I think it's worth testing it out and saying, okay, the data says people want to buy this card right now for $8 raw. And they're going to wait. Like, those people willing to buy it for $8 raw are going to wait for like 3 months to get their card, most likely. And you could buy a 25 pack for $100, which I know lowers your cost to around $4, even after taxes and shipping. So that's a win-win for both parties, because you can flip it right away. But here's the bigger thing. And Field Cards came back and said, hey, that makes a lot of sense when I answered that question. The bigger thing is when you look at the sales data of her other Panini Instant cards, because we talked about the DN1, but she's got other Panini Instant cards in PSA 10 that are selling for over $100. The number one, the Panini Instant number one Caitlin Clark rookie card is selling consistently, not only for over $100, but one sold on 70 bids for $260. Here's another one, number 19, sold for $161. This other one that number 10 sold for $123. So every Panini Instant Caitlin Clark card right now in PSA 10 is selling for over $100. So I would say yes. One of the biggest takeaways of today's show came in from our person. The best sports cards came in. Should I buy this? Dropped recently. I say yes. I say buy it. Sullivan Sports Card says, let's go have some fun. I'm going to have some fun making money on this one. Lefty, are you going to buy this too?
How many are you buying?
I'm going 25. I'm going all in. I'm going because here's why. It lowers your cost per card down significantly if you go 25. So that's why I'm doing it.
I wish they had more scalable options because I would buy more than 25 of these.
I mean, I bought, here's the thing. I bought 50 of the Bo Nix one that we talked about a few weeks ago. I bought 25 packs of the Bo Nix. I think you did too. I went out and bought the other Bo Nix one. So there's 2 Bo Nix cards. I bought 50 of one, 25 of the other. I'm almost already sold out of the Bo Nix cards, and I'm profiting sometimes upwards of not all the time, but sometimes upwards of $10 profit per Bo Nix raw card with all those cards. So I just like having the inventory right now of all of these cards that people really, really want. And I think it's easy to move them in either auctions or buy it now or best offers pre-sale. But with Caitlin Clark, I mean, we just at the beginning of the show, we literally talked about the fact that I made my best play of all time, profited $2,500, probably could have held out and profited $7,500. Here's another opportunity to maybe do it again. I'm going to go do it again. What's the downside really of spending $105 all in on 25 Caitlin Clark cards that I know I could go sell pretty much when I get them back still for probably close to $10 per card.
I mean, we could put these on our table at the Nashville Card Show for $5.
That's right. That's exactly right. If we have them from Panini by then, October 8th through the 11th, I believe, is when we're going to be there with Interner. So I'm pumped about that. Lefty, anything else you want to hit him with before I hit him with the outro?
That's it.
Best sports card show of all time. Dare I say best podcast of all time?
Woo!
Everybody, thanks so much for all of your support. We love you. Have a great day. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. To connect with us further, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Please also give us a follow on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy and on X at No Off Season Card. We also have a Discord that you could join at sportscardstrategy.com. Everyone, I'm Paul Hickey. For the rest of us here at nooffseason.com, have a great day. We'll see you again soon.